Hey guys, Taylor and Polly here from Beaten Jeans, and today we have the honor and the privilege of speaking with Miss Karen Chelcun, who is the founder of the Save Our Stomachs campaign, why we're all here today. We're very excited to talk to you. So welcome, Karen.
Thanks. How are you today?
We're doing good.
Where are you coming to us from today?
Today I am in Madison, Wisconsin, hiding out in my bedroom. Zoom calls going on all over the place in this today. So my husband and I are trying to stay in our little spaces for a while.
Very nice.
And I imagine it being cold in Madison today.
It is wonderfully sunny and horribly cold. This is a good place to be, right where I am right now.
Is the snow falling?
No snow falling, just cold temperatures. When we were gone this past weekend, there was like 9 inches that fell. But things are pretty clear right now. It's just cold and breezy and sunny.
Well, we've never been to Madison, so we're looking forward to our trip there in a couple weeks.
It's a beautiful city, surrounded by lakes. It's very pretty.
Yeah.
Now, are you originally from Madison?
No, I originally grew up in Lincolnwood, Illinois, which is a northern suburb of Chicago. My dad's family, he grew up there, and my mom's family, they grew up in the city. His parents were immigrants from Russia, and my mom's parents were here already. Their ancestors came from Germany. So they met in the Chicago area and lived there, and that's where we grew up.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Now, this is a second home of yours, right? You have another home in Hawaii, right?
Well, we don't own a home there, but we've lived there quite a bit of time since we've retired. We retired, 18 years ago, 2005, retired early and downsized, got rid of big homes and stuff and moved into a nice small place so that we could escape the Wisconsin winters. And we started going to different places every year. So our first trip was to Kauai for 2 months, January and February. I think the next year or the year after, we went to New Zealand for 10 weeks, or New Zealand and Australia for 10 weeks. And then after that, every year we would try to go someplace different. That was the idea. So we'd go to the Big Island or Maui. But after a while, we just got in this, we call it our Maui rut. We just loved Maui so much that we kept going back there. So we'd stay longer and longer. 2 months became 3, and it became 4, and then it became 5.
Oh my gosh, incredible.
I know. And we would rent the same place from an owner, tiny condo. You know, if you can live in 560 square feet in Maui. It's pretty easy.
You're not inside a lot.
Right. You need a place to shower and sleep and keep your stuff, and that's about it. So, so it's been really wonderful to get out of town for the winters.
That's my goal.
I know.
My life goal.
Yeah.
So you are sort of the matriarch, basically, of this stomach cancer group. You have been dealing with CDH1 for a long time, and actually you had your stomach removed quite some time ago. So can you take us back to the beginning of how you discovered that you carried the CDH1 genetic mutation?
Sure. So let me see. Back in 1982, that was before the CDH1 gene was even discovered. I was 24. I had a young family. I was living in Wisconsin. As a kid, we had moved. My dad bought a lake house in Wisconsin where we spent a lot of time, and I ended up moving to Wisconsin as an adult. So 1982, my mom was 52 years old, and she got sick and was diagnosed with gastric cancer, and it was late stage. And it was shocking to the whole family. It was a surprise. My mom had been pretty active and healthy, and all of a sudden there was this cancer diagnosis. And I was in Wisconsin, they were in Illinois, and My dad didn't talk about stuff very much. I think a lot of people back then didn't really share medical things. So it wasn't really till the end of my mom's life that I really understood that she had advanced cancer. And she passed away in December of 1982 from that cancer. So I think she lived maybe 9 months following her diagnosis.
Very
And
fast.
at that time, we didn't ask many questions, just it was gastric cancer. And doctors said, well, that's, it's a pretty rare thing, not something you have to worry about. I don't know, what does that mean? Not something you have to worry about. But over the years, through our own medical care, our doctors would ask our family history, and I would bring up my mom's cancer, and they would say, well, that's pretty unusual, or that's a rare cancer. Just little remarks like that, nothing else. And then in 2007, 25 years after my mother's death, my oldest brother, Greg, got sick. He was 56, and they were trying to figure out what was going on. He had had some symptoms for a while, and he had had endoscopy screenings, and they didn't see anything. They thought it was his gallbladder, and they removed his gallbladder, but that didn't change anything. And he ended up in the hospital in an emergency situation. And when they went in, they found that there was cancer in his abdomen. They had to remove part of his colon, all of his spleen, but they still didn't know where the cancer was originating from at that time. They were trying to figure it out. My brother had just gotten back from a trip to Africa, and at first he was thinking that maybe he had come down with something, got sick with something there, but it turned out later, I was starting to think that it was gastric cancer just from what they were finding, and I started Googling around about hereditary stomach cancer, because I thought, maybe this is what's going on with my brother. My mother had this, and, they say it's rare, but my brother's sick. And I started finding things about, very few things about the CDH1 gene mutation and HDGC in an article that was written at Stanford. And it talked about only 75 families worldwide, and here's the criteria for testing, and we didn't meet the criteria. We didn't have a lot of people with stomach cancer so far. We only knew about my mom and my brother. And I think my brother had gotten, by this time, the stomach cancer diagnosis, but it was when I was in his room visiting him when one of the doctors came in and said signet ring cells. And that's what I had been reading about in these papers from Stanford, that signet ring cells are involved, and if you have this mutation, it's recommended that you have your stomach removed. And I'm talking to my sister-in-law and my other brother. We're going back and forth saying, this has to be us. This must be us. And then, but this can't be us. I don't want this to be us.
So rare too to have it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so only, 75 families worldwide. Well, it can't be us, we don't meet the criteria. But when we heard him say signet ring cells, my brother was going to be going down to MD Anderson to be treated. And I gave my sister-in-law this paper and said, take this with you and insist on genetic testing. I don't care if we have to pay for it, we'll pay for it. But before I knew about the CDH1 thing, I had kind of panicked myself when I learned that my brother had gastric cancer. And I went to my gastroenterologist here wanting to have a scope, not understanding at that point that we had CDH1 and not understanding that a scope would be ineffective.
Right.
He thought I was crazy. He thought I was a hysterical patient who was, exaggerating about this.
Yeah. Right.
So my brother went to MD Anderson in January, and he was tested. They didn't want to test him there. They pushed back, but thankfully they insisted. My brother insisted. And in March, his test result came back positive for CDH1.
Wow.
Everybody.
And we always talk about with everybody is being your own advocate and,
you know what's best for yourself. And yeah, you really do have to
push these doctors. You have to ask for what you want, what you feel like you need. And, 9 times out of 10, they'll follow through with what you're suggesting.
And you're usually correct. And in your case, you were.
Well, and what you say is true. It's like I don't have a medical background, so I couldn't base my feeling on medical backgrounds. But to me, just logic, if this gastric cancer is so rare, why are there 2 people in my family, my small family? Why are there 2 people in my little family that are affected by gastric cancer? So that's why I was originally thinking it was hereditary, and it turned out to be that way. So
thank goodness, Karen, that you did that research and were able to find this gene in your family so you could do something about it.
What happened with your brother after he was treated at MD Anderson?
He saw doctors at MD Anderson for his chemotherapy regimen. He lived in Stevens Point, Wisconsin, and that's where he stayed throughout his treatments. And he lived, I would say 19 months past his diagnosis. Okay. So he passed away in, I believe it was January of 2009, I think. Yeah.
Seen 2 people in your family battle through this horrific cancer. And that was probably a wake-up call to you, because you'd been researching and things were saying to have your stomach removed. So before your brother's passing, was that something that you thought that you should move forward with?
We jumped on this in our family pretty early on. So when my brother was diagnosed, I was 50, almost 51, which is about the same age my mother was when she passed away. So he did his genetic test in January, came back positive in March. I did my test in March, got my positive result in May. So by that time, I had already been doing research about surgeons and surgery and what to do next. So I was ready to take the next step to schedule my surgery. After I tested in May, then the rest of the family members started testing. My son tested positive. My brother, who had cancer, his 2 children, my niece and nephew, they both tested positive. And my other brother tested positive. So it was just kind of this chain of events where, so in May, I knew I was going to be getting my surgery. I had figured out a surgeon, and I had it scheduled for September of the same year at Mass General. I was timing it for Maui. I wanted to enjoy my summer in Wisconsin, have my surgery, recover, go to Maui in January, and be hiking in the mountains. And so that's what we did. But so my brother Ken, I had my surgery in September. Ken had his in December. And I traveled to North Carolina to take care of his kids while he had his surgery. He had 3 young boys. And then my nephew, Brian, my older brother's son, he had his surgery scheduled for, I can't remember if it was January or February, but my brother passed away like a week before Brian's surgery was scheduled. And Brian still went through with his surgery, which is hard for me to believe that he was even able to do that, with all of the grief of losing his father and then getting ready to have this surgery. So I think that was really difficult for him, but I feel like it was important to his dad that he have this surgery. I'm not sure exactly how that went. I wasn't involved in all of those personal conversations, but he went through with it at that time. And then my niece took a little bit of time to think about what she wanted to do. And she didn't have her surgery for another maybe 2 years. And my oldest son, who tested positive, he waited about 7 years until he had his surgery. He was in a different place in life, and he just had a daughter when I was diagnosed with CDH1. Actually, she wasn't even born yet. She was, I think, her mother was like 2 months along at this time. So just a lot of different things going on. He eventually had his surgery think maybe 7 years ago now, but he was going through endoscopy screening during that time while he was waiting. So yeah, it was.
Did you all go to the same hospital, same surgeon?
No, I went to Boston to Sam Yoon. My brother Ken was next. He went to Boston to Sam Yoon. Brian was next. He went to Boston to Sam Yoon. Joanna was next. She was in New York. She went to Memorial Sloan Kettering. Dan Coit was her surgeon. And then my son went to Sam Yoon, but by this time Sam was also at Memorial Sloan Kettering. So he went there. And
how was your pathology reports? Did you guys have any cells detected?
we did. Most of us had very few. Like I had a few in situ cancer cells and a couple little spots, which they kind of expect. That was at the time when they were doing the full pathology, like 170 slices and examining all of that. But so they found something. Of all of the people in our family, it was Joanna, the youngest one, that had the most cancer cells.
Wow. Wow.
Like 21 T1A tumors.
With your brother's daughter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, it sure is reassuring when they find those cells that you made the right decision.
Well, yeah. And at that time, for me, it was a no-brainer, being the same age that my mother was and seeing what she went through and then seeing what my brother was going through. It really wasn't, I always say it wasn't so much a decision. It was just a realization, getting to that point of being able to say out loud what I knew all along that I really needed to do. I didn't feel like it was a choice. I felt like, it was a choice, but I felt like it was a given.
Right.
That there was no other choice to make. I guess that's how
the other options. Right.
Yeah.
Well, that was like in the beginning kind of the whole CDH1 awareness and kind of gastrectomy. So you were on the newish side of stomach removal. How was your recovery after surgery with such little known about how well or how to live without a stomach?
Yeah, when I had my surgery, Sam Yoon was the surgeon in the United States that had done the largest series of preventive gastrectomies for CDH1 patients. And I was his number 7 for CDH1. Wow, I was 7, my brother was 8, Brian was 9. So and he had a lot of experience doing gastrectomies for cancer patients, but for HDGC, that was the largest series. And I did fine. I traveled to Boston, stayed in a hotel there, had my surgery. I was in the hospital maybe 7 days, had a few little blips along the way, mostly like emotional meltdowns after I did this, and then had my first really bad day, and I kind of went into it was like a meltdown of, oh my God, what did I do? It was like a door slammed behind me and there was no doorknob to go back. It was like, I can't undo this now. What did I just do? It was just like an hours of just sobbing and sobbing and sobbing. But once that was over, then everything, I was able to just figure things out, because there were no resources. There were no good dietary nutrition resources. Kind of had to figure everything out. And I'm doing this in a hotel room because we stayed on longer in case there were complications. I didn't want to be back in Madison. So we stayed an extra 2 weeks. So it wasn't really fun at all. But
you probably didn't know about staying away from sugar and proper protein and taking your supplements and all of that.
Right.
Yeah, I was just reading what I was learning online and a few things from mostly things that I read about spacing out, small meals. And I was taking everything literally, how many minutes before you drink, after you drink, before you eat, and then you drink. So I was alternating all day long. It was exhausting.
Full-time job then. It was like your whole world switched to what you were putting in your mouth.
Right. And it got pretty old really fast. So I'm glad it improved really fast too.
And you were a beacon for your other family members that were traveling down this path. You were able to probably guide them and help support them with their surgeries, which I'm sure was very helpful.
Yes. But again, and even in our family, it's the same thing I say all the time is one size doesn't fit all. And everybody's so different what they can tolerate and how things go. But everybody in my family did pretty well. I mean, we all lost a good chunk of weight, but we were able to get back to normal and get back to normal activities.
So how many years has it been since your surgery?
I want to say 14. So it was 2008. It's like 14 and a half years. It'll be 15 years in September.
Okay. What was the biggest hurdle for you or struggle or maybe even health issue that stemmed from the gastrectomy, or did you not have any long-term issues?
Yeah, your lab values, how they maintained over these years.
The only thing, I did have an incisional hernia a year after my gastrectomy, and I had that repaired here, and that was fine. It was not a big deal. But the biggest long-term effect for me was my bone density. Took a real nosedive. I mean, I was high on the good end off the charts before my surgery. I had a baseline bone density done before surgery, and that went downhill pretty fast. So now I have osteopenia. I don't have osteoporosis, osteopenia. But part of that I have to maybe take some of the blame myself because I wasn't as good about maintaining my exercise and fitness level after like I did before. Because before I was more motivated by staying physically fit and maintaining a healthy weight and being strong. But in terms of not weighing too much. But after my gastrectomy, it was the opposite, where I needed to eat more, and exercising would, use up more calories. I just wasn't good taking care of my nutritional things on my own. And doing too much work and not enough focus on taking care of myself. So
were you taking calcium supplements? Did they tell you to or suggest that you do that then? Okay.
Yep. I was always taking calcium supplements and vitamins, chewable adult vitamins at that time. I've switched several years ago to the bariatric type vitamins, but
and what do you do for osteopenia now that you've been diagnosed with it? Is there a treatment plan for that?
Some people take drugs for osteoporosis. I don't take drugs. I just increased my doing exercise for my low back and eating more calcium, getting more calcium in my regular diet. But just continuing to do exercise and like yoga for back and things like that has helped keep it in check.
Good.
Yeah.
Moving the body. Yeah, weight-bearing exercises are so very important for bone health.
For everybody, just in general.
Yeah, and I took my health club had a class for, it was called something, I can't remember what it was called, but it was basically for people with osteopenia, osteoporosis to increase their bone density through exercise. And a lot of it was balance work, a lot of it was weight work just with your body. And I think that helped a lot. It helped me feel better. And I think it helps maintain that level. And I was just working hard to try to get my bone density to stay the same and not continue to go down. So
it's such an important message to share to the community, the importance of bone health, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think it's spoken about enough. I mean, we take our calcium, but we don't really think about the ramifications if we aren't working out, doing that weight bearing, taking our vitamins.
Right.
So
yep.
You start
Yeah.
lifting those weights.
That's right.
This is your sign.
I know. And walking up and down stairs and just, anything weight bearing is really important.
If you go on that walk, take your 3-pound weights with you.
Yeah.
Strap some ankle weights on, do some weight bearing.
Now, I want to ask, since it's been so long since your family's discovered this gene, have you, is the family continuing to test, or is the next generation able to test, or are people talking maybe they might try going down the IVF so that they can, get rid of this gene altogether? I mean, what's the family strategy moving forward?
Well, my son's family, my son's daughter's not old enough for testing yet. My other brother has adult children now that have not tested for a variety of reasons. So they're having conversations about it now, trying to come up with a plan. And I've been giving them more information about what's going on now with the latest research and with endoscopy screening options. Because I feel like, my own view is, even if none of them have tested, so they don't know their status, but even if they don't think that they would want to have a gastrectomy, maybe now or ever, they should at least be in a position to be screening.
Right. Definitely.
Yeah. And you can't screen unless you test. So, and testing means you have to be prepared, with your insurance and things like that, have everything in line. But I think it's hard sometimes for young people to be ready to do that when they're in college or in there between 18 and 25. I feel like there's a lot of people that just don't want to go down that path.
Definitely a lot of pushback. My son was adamant against being tested for the longest time, and finally agreed to be tested. And
you don't want to be that young and going through college and worrying and having that be in the back of your mind.
He always say, I'd just rather die than have that done. But thank goodness he just finally agreed.
I think you grow up and you realize, no, I do have a whole life ahead of me and I should probably be tested.
Yeah.
Because knowing is so powerful. I mean, you can do something about it.
Absolutely. Right? There's a lot of things you can test for and find out you have something, and there's nothing you can do except fret about it and wonder when it's going to happen to you. But you're right. In this instance, there are things that you can do, and you don't have to run off and have surgery tomorrow.
Right.
There are things that you can do to prepare and to think about it. Or maybe, if you test, maybe it's okay, I'm negative, so I don't have to worry about this at all.
And even if you aren't testing, you're probably still wondering in the back of your head. Right. So if you test negative, you can let go of all that.
Yeah, exactly.
So I want to know about your involvement with stomach cancer in general. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you got involved or started the No Stomach for Cancer
initiative?
Yeah, well, when my brother was diagnosed, as you know, there were no resources out there. There was very little information about CDH1. I had found out that the gene mutation was discovered in 1998 in New Zealand by Perry and his team. And I had contacted Perry by email. I still have the email that I sent him just before my surgery, this article was about the latest research and the advancements. And so I'm writing, well, how is it going? And is there anything I can do now before I have this surgery? It's what a dreamer. And he wrote back the kindest letter or email the same day. I thought I was sending this off into la la land, and he responded right away and assured me that things would be better now that we knew about this and we had this knowledge and we could take some action and that everything could be okay. And he just gave me the confidence that I needed to feel good about moving forward. And at that time, after communicating with him by email, already it was in my mind that I wanted to be able to support this research that they were doing in New Zealand. And at this time, so this was like June, July, my family, we were planning our family reunion, and we needed to tell our family about what was going on. And I had started a website called Be Strong Hearted, that came from, I'm not going to pronounce this right, but the words that Amy Murray used to use all the time. She'd sign off kia kaha, be strong, or be strong, be strong. And so I was Googling what that means. And so we interpreted that to be strong in the face of challenge. So kia kaha, be strong hearted. And I started a website putting information out there so that I could send my relatives there every time they wanted to know what is this, and why are you having your stomach removed, and how do they do that, and how do you eat, and all my friends and everybody's family. So it's like, well, we need a place where we can send people to find all this information. So it started out with this little website and a fund that I opened in Stevens Point, where my brother was, at the Community Foundation, Chelcun Family Fund for HDGC Research. And it was an endowment fund at the Community Foundation, which was primarily funded with friends, family, memorial donations for my brother. And that fund still exists. It's actually part of No Stomach for Cancer now, and part of what they use for the monies that come from that endowment for educational things, educational programs, or helping new researchers with funds for studies or work that they're doing in the United States or in other countries. So that still exists. But and we started the website because I was so frustrated that this gene mutation had been known for 10 years, but we didn't know about it, and our doctors didn't know about it, and I couldn't find anybody who knew about it, except there was another family who had an article published about them in a newspaper a couple of years before, and they talked about it, and then that was it. That was the end of it. So it's like, we need to get information out there. We have to keep spreading this information, because I know that there's other families. And so when we started the website, there was a place where people could register on the site and contact us, because I said, I know that there's more families out there and I want them to find us. And they did. And they started finding us by hundreds of people from all over the world through the website and through, email connections. And so it's like, wow, because I would always say, I know it's, relatively speaking, I know it's rare, but it's not, what's the word I want? Just because it's rare doesn't mean it's non-existent. It exists, and there are people who have it, and 75 families worldwide. I was certain that number was wrong, that it was just unidentified. So when we started hearing from people, it was amazing. And people started wanting to do fundraising. People wanted to get information. People wanted to help each other. And so it just started growing and growing into more of a community. And it got to be so much that I was working for an attorney at the time. She was a copyright attorney. And she said, if you want to keep this going, you probably should think about incorporating it or starting a 501c3 so that everything's not on you and it can keep going when you can't, et cetera, et cetera. So we had a conversation about that, and my sister-in-law, Cindy, and my attorney friend, Beth, and I worked on plans to start this nonprofit and file for 501c3 status. And we did that. We came up with the name, No Stomach for Cancer, and hired a designer to create our logo, which was Allison, who's helping us on the SOS campaign. So she wasn't my friend then. She was just a hired person who became a friend and is still very interested and committed to the work that we're doing for HDGC families. So that's what started that. And was a lot of work, but we were getting so many people coming to the site looking for help and looking for information that it was just so totally worth it. So
rewarding. I mean, think of all the lives that you've helped. Now, was it just people with HDGC that were reaching out to you, or were there other families that had other types of stomach cancers going to you for help?
So Be Strong Hearted started about HDGC. No Stomach for Cancer, when we were developing our mission, we had the debate about, do we want to focus on all stomach cancer or just HDGC? And we decided that we really needed to focus on all stomach cancer because there was not awareness about all types of stomach cancer, whether it was diffuse gastric cancer, hereditary diffuse gastric cancer, intestinal, some of the other rare stomach cancer syndromes like the GIST or the stromal tumors. Yeah. So we thought we need to encompass all of that. But I do have to say that my own personal passion has always been the hereditary side. But we have helped a lot of people and worked with a lot of people that have been impacted by many other types of cancer or stomach cancer over the years and helping them find resources and even funding. I don't think all of the funding that No Stomach for Cancer did was just for HDGC. It was for other types of stomach cancer as well.
Well, even Taylor and I have had a number of people reach out to us talking about you, Karen, and the impact that you've had on them. And
oh, that's nice. That's nice.
And you helped me personally in my own journey. Gosh, it was probably a year ago I called you. You didn't know who I was, but you sure spent some time discussing my health issues, and you took it seriously and helped me with my decision. And the community just is so grateful of you and all you've done.
Well, I appreciate that. And my husband and I have this debate all the time about what's work. He'd say, you work too much. Come and do this. Or we'd be in Maui. Where's Karen? She's upstairs. What is she doing up there? Well, she's working. Well, tell her to come out and play. So I just said, define work. If I'm enjoying what I'm doing, is that work? Or does it have to be a paid job to be work? Or, what? I don't know. It just, if people do things that give them satisfaction. And I think I got back just as much from all of the people that I've met, if not more than I've given. So it's been a mutual thing. It's been therapeutic for me to get through what we were getting through in the early days and to be able to help other people so that maybe it would be a little bit easier for them. And it's just been, like, I think I've said this before, some people spend their lives looking for their purpose in life. My purpose found me. I mean, I wasn't probably ready for it until I retired and had 3 years to play, and then my purpose found me. And end of story. I mean, that's
God put you in that position for sure, and you sure have taken it far, and we all appreciate you so much. So,
well, thank you, and I appreciate everybody else. And all of these things that have happened over the years, it's taken everybody in the community has contributed in one way or another by taking what they've learned from me or from a website and shared it with other people, connected with other people, participated in events to help other people. I mean, everybody has played a role, making donations. It's all
it takes a village.
Yeah.
Raising awareness. It's awareness raising.
It's cool because this community is getting bigger with more genetic testing that's going on. I believe that this HDGC is our family is going to continue to grow. And it's such a great resource, the No Stomach for Cancer, and now the SOS for people to help. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. So, and then within that, we want to talk about you and your family founding the No Stomach for the Stomach Cancer Awareness Month, November.
Oh, yeah. So so No Stomach for Cancer, we incorporated, it was like 2009 or 2010. And one of the first things I wanted to do as an organization was to establish a stomach cancer awareness month, because there were awareness months for every cancer in the world, but nothing for stomach cancer. And so I felt like, okay, just because you have a stomach cancer awareness month doesn't suddenly change everything in many ways, but it does in a lot of other ways. So like, well, let me go back to establishing it. I learned that it's not easy to get us an awareness month established, but
I wouldn't imagine it would be.
but with my family members, I said, this is what we need to do. This is what I want to have stomach cancer awareness month established. We talked about what month. We decided on November. We wanted it to be 2010. We had to push really hard. Cindy, my sister-in-law, Beth Lambert, one of the early board members, worked hard on writing letters to senators and people all over to talk about, try to get their support to establish a stomach cancer awareness month. I think Brian and I don't remember exactly. Brian is my nephew who was working for, he spent 4 years in the Peace Corps in Tanzania. And then he came back and went to law school. And at one point, earlier in my personal life, I met Russ Feingold, who's a Wisconsin state senator at the time, in the hot tub at Harbor Athletic Club. And he said, we talked a lot about a lot of things, and we were talking about going to DC on a trip. And he said, well, when you're there, you should come and visit me in my office. I'll arrange for a tour for you, and you can dine in the Senate dining room and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, great. So we did. We went there. And when we were in his office, he was showing us all this stuff. And there was all these things from Africa. And he had a lot of interest and was doing a lot of work related to Africa. And I looked around and I said, you need to meet my nephew. I think you two somehow need to connect. You need to connect. So he said, well, when you get back to Wisconsin, let's do that. So I arranged for Brian to meet Russ. I think they had coffee at a coffee shop in Madison. And long story short, Brian ended up working for Russ in DC. Wow. And actually, he was working for him at the time he was diagnosed with, I think he was already diagnosed. I don't know if CDH1 had already started in our family when he started working with him. I can't remember. But anyway, so Brian ended up working with Russ and helping us figure out all the ways to get this done. And we finally came up with a resolution. It was like Senate Resolution 655 or something in 2010. And Russ sponsored it. And I think maybe another senator in Illinois, maybe Dick Durbin, was a sponsor. And they got it pushed through. They got it passed. So that was the official first Stomach Cancer Awareness Month. And there wasn't a lot of time to prepare to make a big celebration out of it, because I think it passed like, I don't know, a couple days before November or a couple days after. I don't even remember, but it was like, okay, great. Now what?
Yeah, we got to make some shirts.
Well, it's incredible. I mean, people come into your life for a reason. Here you are in this hot tub and you meet this person that helped to make this huge impact.
And I'm learning that more and more over the years, is it's these connections that you make with people that make such a difference, and you don't know where they're going to go. But even connecting with Perry and Jeremy Davis connecting. When I first met Jeremy and he was talking about his study, and I said, you need to be involved in this international group. And I've said that to several people, you need to be involved in this international group. And there's more and more people that are coming into that group from all over the world, including the United States, which is going to help us move forward. And Perry and Jeremy Davis are now collaborating on this research that we're working on with funding through SOS. So just exciting things.
How did you end up meeting Perry? I know he wrote you that really nice email back. How did you guys decide to meet up and see each other in person?
So my husband and I had always wanted to go to New Zealand. And that was one of the places on our list when we retired. We were going to go to a different place every winter. So I think I went to New Zealand in 2010 or 2011, 2010, I think, because my surgery was in 2008. So in 2010, we decided to go to New Zealand. We were going to do 4 weeks in the North Island, 4 weeks in the South Island, and then a week in Tasmania and a week in Southern Australia. So Perry and I planned on, he invited me, he wanted to take me on a tour of the lab in the University of Otago. And so we planned that for the part of our trip when we got far south to Dunedin. And oh my gosh, it was wonderful. There was a lot of funny stories in there. But anyway, he picked us up at our hotel and took us, picked us up at our hotel on an arranged date, took us around for a little tour in the country in New Zealand, stopped at this little bar, little shack on the water where there were some boats out there. And it was this little rustic, looked like a fisherman's shack bar. And we had a drink and he said, "You see that boat out there?" He said, "That's the boat I caught the fish on that we're cooking for you for dinner tonight."
Really? Oh, that's so cool.
And he took us back to our hotel to freshen up after our little excursion, and then picked us up later, and we went to his house and met his family and had a wonderful dinner. And he had a special bottle of wine, Ottaurangi Pinot Noir, that he had been talking about, that we had with our meal. I still have the empty bottle here. He was here earlier this year, and he said, "You still have that bottle?" I said, "Yes, it's a treasure. It's a memento of that time in New Zealand." So we had a wonderful time. And then the next day we met up with them at the lab at the university, and he took us on a tour around the campus a little bit and through his lab. And we met a lot of people in the lab that were working there at that time. And it was just a wonderful time. Spent a couple hours in his office talking about the research that they were working on and updating me on everything like that. And I had told him from the start that we were going to raise millions of dollars for HDGC research. That's what I said way back then. And I'm still want to keep doing that. And I want to keep that funding going for the work that's going on there.
Can I ask how much you have raised from the start of the heart? What was the heart one called?
Kiakaha.
Strong-hearted.
Strong-hearted.
Yeah.
From starting strong-hearted to now, do you have a rough estimate of how much you have been able to?
Well, Be Strong-Hearted was like the $15,000 that we left in the endowment fund that still exists at No Stomach for Cancer. Then I think No Stomach for Cancer from start to date is maybe, I'm not sure, maybe $1.5 million maybe that they've granted to research from start to finish. Our first grant from there was to Perry. It was a $10,000 grant. That was the very first one, an early one that we had split with the De Gregorio Foundation. Perry was looking for some money, and we didn't have much then. We had just started, but we were able to split with Lynn. So that was the first grant, but probably almost $1.5 million. And then plus whatever we do now with SOS.
Wow, that is so amazing.
Right. Stomach cancer is one of the least government funded cancers. So to have your organization helping in
that's an impact for sure.
Yeah.
Well, we definitely need to do more. I'm never satisfied.
No, yeah, there's always more to be done.
So there came a point when you decided that you needed to step away from No Stomach for Cancer, and you started your HDGC website.
Right.
Which is incredible. If you guys have not seen her website, it is just loaded full of information. You can find it on saveourstomachs.org. But anyway, then at what point did you decide that you wanted to do more than your informative website?
So, okay, so I took a step away from No Stomach for Cancer because I was spending too much time on was more administrative things and not enough people and researchers. And that's where my interest is in helping people and the research. So I stepped away for a while and I started the website so that people could still find me and still find some information. But during those years, that was like 2015 through 2017, I was helping my father and stepmother through their end of life stages, from living independently in a home to moving them into assisted living and then, end of life stuff. So I really needed to be able to focus on that 100%, but still be able to be in touch with people and keep in touch with the researchers and do what I could and make my own donations. And that was fine. But then after my dad passed, I had been talking with Perry about an endowment fund for a long time. And I had told him after my dad passed, I said I was going to make a bequest to the HDGC research at Otago, the money that I inherited from my father, because I wanted to do that in honor of my father and my brother and my mother and all that they had been through. And I thought, so when I die, if that's still there, if I didn't need that, and I'm not one to just blow money, that's where that would go. So, and I had been thinking it, and then I'd been and we've talked about, endowment fund versus a current fund, because they need money for current research, and also they need some sustainable income there too. So it wasn't until this year that I really started realizing I had set up my estate plan. I had made these bequests that would go into, I created the endowment fund. And then I started thinking, well, if all that goes into that endowment fund is what I put in there from my bequest, that's not going to do shit. It's not going to make a difference. It's going to pay for like test tubes or something. It's not going to do anything. So then I realized, in order to make this work, we really have to build this fund. We really have to fund this endowment fund to make it worthwhile. So that's when I got the idea. And finally, it took me too many years to finally get the energy to say, okay, we need to do this and we need to do this now. And how are we going to do this? And that's when I started looking for other people to get involved and to get this going. And we got this going really fast. If you think about it, when did we start? September?
Yeah,
I think so.
It was.
I think it was September.
We're like, let's try and get it off by January. We're like, I don't know, that's gonna take some work.
Does the endowment, the monies donated into the endowment, is it just the interest that is used for the funding?
Yes and no. So any donations that go to the endowment fund, I consider that to be an investment in HDGC research. So that money, that principal, always stays in the fund, always. Okay. And the University of Otago has a lot of funds like that, a lot of endowment funds, and they invest their monies so that they get a good return on the monies in these funds. The return may be more than what they pay out so that the endowment fund can keep growing. So as an example, when I talked to Sheila at Otago about how are they paying out on these funds now, it's generally 4.5% per year. So in my example, I'm going to throw some numbers. So our goal right now is a $1.5 million US dollars into that fund. That 1.5 translated into New Zealand dollars is about 2.5 million. So if we reach 2.5 million, the money that that would be paid out to Perry's lab to be able to use for research would be 4.5% of that. So if there was $2.5 million in there, that would be about $110,000 a year forever.
Wow.
I mean, if that amount didn't grow forever. So if we were able to fund the US within US dollars, like $5 million, in Otago, that would be $7.7 million at 4.5%. That's $350,000 per year guaranteed that they would have for salaries or consumables or whatever they needed forever.
Wow.
Forever, instead of like a $250,000 donation that you use immediately now, which they still need, but then that's it.
It would be the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah. And so it's really not just making a one-time donation. That a donation to this fund is an investment in all of the future research that's going on. So now when my bequest goes into that fund, it's going to be more meaningful. And if other people are able to do the same thing, or if we continue to raise money for the fund, it's going to help sustain the lab and sustain the work that they're doing and be able to make the progress that we want to make.
Right. We need to grow that principle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. So,
so you came up with this idea to build another website that focused on this endowment fund.
mm-hmm.
And
that was somebody that I know named it, came up with the name Save Our Stomachs.
That
we could probably say his name. It's not us. It
No,
was Dad.
It was Dad.
Oh, that's right. Okay, you guys came up with Perry's Angels.
Yes, Perry's
Yes.
Angels. Yes.
Yes, right.
So
Okay.
we've got a team of, how many of us are there? Are there 5 of us? 6
I
of
think
us?
there are 6 of us.
Yeah.
I think there's 6 of us now.
Justin and then us 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sort of how we really got to know you, Karen, was starting in September, starting to figure out how are we going to kick this big endowment fund campaign off, and got to have Zoom meetings with you every week until we launched. And
yeah. And now we have launched, and there's some things that need to be worked out, and we need to continue finding sources for funding, but I have a lot more ideas that I'm going to be throwing out there pretty soon to help with that and maybe get some more people involved. But I think there's so much that people in the community can do, but I think we also need to be able to reach people to invest in this endowment fund that are outside of the HDGC community to really get that going more. And I hope that I would like to be able to engage people in the community to get more involved in thinking about how we can expand this fund through maybe people's employers or businesses in their communities, or just other ways to keep bringing some funds into the research fund.
Definitely a community.
This is a really good opportunity for those of you who are watching. If you have any ideas, or if maybe you work for a company that would
maybe match a fundraiser or something like that,
let us know. Reach out to us, and we want to meet this goal. We absolutely want to meet the $1.5 million goal and far succeed it, because we're never done. We're always going to keep striving to do better.
And we can help. We can help you with giving you our logo, t-shirts, anything you need to get the word out for your fundraiser. So.
Yes, very important. We're trying to find the chemo prevention therapy for our children so that they can live their life with the stomach and not have to worry about getting this horrible cancer that some of us
right. And that is the project that they are working on currently, but that could even progress into genetics and who knows what.
Yeah.
With the technology that's coming every day.
Yeah.
And more research toward lobular breast cancer, and some of the chemo prevention drugs that they're working on may also be beneficial with lobular breast cancer. And some of the things that they're working on may also be beneficial for other stomach cancers. So there's a lot of potential there for great discoveries and solutions for people impacted by stomach cancer. So yeah, we got to keep going.
And then you were saying that once we reach this goal, that we may even be able to help out other laboratories, like the one in
Portugal.
Spain, Portugal.
Yep, there's a lot of Carla Oliveira in Portugal is working on a lot of wonderful projects, and she also collaborates on some things with Perry and with I think David Huntsman in Canada. That's another great thing about the international group of researchers for HDGC is there's so much more collaboration going on that I've been seeing since I've been involved in this for the last 10 years, which is really exciting to see them working together on things. So, and funding is always an issue, and especially for smaller labs and especially for rare diseases, rare cancers. So the more we can do to help, the better.
Well, gosh, from when you started to not seeing anything online, there sure is a lot of information out there now. So
thanks
Yep.
to you, Karen.
Thank you so
and
much.
to all the people you've met along the way that have taken your torch and ran with it.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. I was realizing that during that time, like 2008, 9, 7, 8, 9, 10, the four, probably what are the four largest gastric cancer nonprofits all were established in that time period. It was J.P. Gallagher that founded the Gastric Cancer Fund. He has since passed away. Lynn DiGregorio Foundation in New York, No Stomach for Cancer, and Debbie's Dream Foundation, all around the same time, which is, yeah, it's almost like everybody was discovering this critical need at the same time in different parts of the country.
Yeah, like you had this connection that you didn't even know about, that you were just kind of radiating off of each other. And
it was the West Coast, the North or the East Coast, Florida in the South, us in the Midwest. It was like different spots across the country, but
he was feeling that need, and look at what everybody's done to help the community. It's incredible.
Yeah. And how much have we raised so far for SOS, for Save Our Stomachs?
Oh, I don't know if I have the exact number, but it's over, with things that aren't showing up yet on the progress beaker. I think it's probably 300 and something, 310,000.
I mean, nice. From launching in November, right?
Yeah.
So it's been 3 months, and
yeah,
it's incredible.
And there are some other commitments out there that are significant, so that's good.
So we want to thank all of you who've gone on and donated, who've bought shirts and who've gone to GoFundMe and given us, your donation means the world. So we appreciate you so much. And if you haven't yet, go to saveourstomachs.org to find out how to donate.
There's several options if you're not comfortable with the GoFundMe, or if you just want to buy some gear.
Yeah.
All the money that we get from the gear goes to the endowment fund.
Yes.
And I certainly appreciate everything that everybody has done all along the way, not just through SOS, but from day one, in the HDGC community and in the stomach cancer community, to get involved and to help one another and to support the research. And that's what it takes. That's what it takes, is people willing to take whatever action they can. So it's made a huge difference.
Right. It's all about that future generation, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We have to make a difference for our children and their children and ongoing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have the gift of knowledge, and we have to use it to make things better.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, So Karen, if you are comfortable talking about it, we know that you have just recently been diagnosed with something aside from stomach cancer, and we wonder if you want to share that with us.
Yeah. It's it's there's an irony there somewhere, I think, but just before going to Maui this year, and this takes me back to, I'm going to start by saying, pay attention to your body, know your body. I mean, take care of your body, but pay attention to things when you think that something isn't right. Don't just dismiss it or ignore it. But before we were going to Maui, we were to leave on November 1st, which was my 65th birthday. And we were preparing to go. And I mean, since my gastrectomy, I've had a really easy time with eating. I've never had problems with, I've gotten back to perfectly normal, where I eat normal 3 meals a day, no issues with reflux or anything. So I know how my body works pretty normally. But about 2 weeks before, well, actually a few months before November, I was starting to have some different pains. Like I have osteoarthritis in my low back, and I've been familiar with that forever. But I started having pain more in my mid back above that, which was unusual for me. And I was also having some pain in like my abdominal area. And I thought some of it might have been from a surgery that I had a few years ago for a spontaneous right pneumothorax, which is a collapsed lung. But I was trying to figure out where this pain was coming from. And my doctors had done a couple things. They did a chest x-ray to recheck things. They did a back x-ray when I was having the pain, trying to figure that out. Couldn't see anything. But I was having, like 2 weeks before, I was having really loud grumbling and gurgling in my guts, and this pain in my mid back that just wouldn't go away. And I was uncomfortable or didn't feel good when I was sitting, and it just was really bothering me. And I was at my breast doctor right before I went, and she said, well, let's get a CT on your chest and see what's going on there. So they did that, and they didn't really find anything except something that could have been remnants from something I had a long time ago. And she said, well, we can't really tell unless they do a CTA on your chest, but we don't need to worry about that now. So I said, okay. So I was at my son's house 3 days before we were going to leave, and still, not feeling good. And he said, Mom, why don't you just go to the ER at the East Hospital on your way home tonight? If you tell them you have abdominal pain, they're going to do a scan, and then you're not going to be able to get into the clinic before you go. So just do that. And I'm like, well, that's a good idea. And while I'm there, I can get the CTA scan on my chest. So I went there, and turned out they found a mass on my pancreas. So and it ended up to be, and so this was like 3 days before we're going to get on a plane to go to Maui. And I knew that I needed to check it because I didn't feel comfortable enough. I didn't feel comfortable getting on that plane to go to Maui when I knew that something just wasn't right. So turns out that it's advanced, it's non-resectable. It's an advanced pancreatic tumor that's wrapped around the superior mesenteric artery. And it's likely metastasized to my lymph nodes and to my liver. So there's really, it's not curable at this point. And talked to the doctor about possibly trying chemo, but the first round was pretty nasty. And by the time that was over, it was supposed to be the next day to start the second round. So I've opted for quality of life over quantity of life. So I haven't been doing chemo. I've just been trying to take care of myself as best I can and spend time with my family and friends and do the things that I want to do. And I guess there's nothing else I can say about that other than I really want to finish this work that I'm doing. And maybe that's what's keeping me going right now. But it's like, okay, now I have to think of all of you people need to be next to help keep this going. So in whatever ways you can, whatever ways you can help, I don't expect somebody to make it their whole life, but we really need to keep supporting this important work and making it possible for these new discoveries and these research projects to keep on going on. But it was kind of ironic in the end that this is another digestive cancer.
Right.
The two most deadly digestive cancers are gastric and pancreatic. So it was nothing that I ever imagined in my wildest dreams I would be diagnosed with. I thought maybe at some point lobular breast cancer, because I've still been doing screenings. But ironically, in part of treating or trying to figure out my pancreatic cancer, not having a stomach has become a bit of a hindrance, because I learned that the stomach is the landmark for finding the pancreas. The pancreas sits behind the stomach. And when they're doing biopsies or different things where they have to get to the pancreas, they can't without the stomach, because everything else has moved in its place, has filled in. And so there's, things, they don't have that landmark to, like, even to be able to do a biopsy. They had to try to do a biopsy. Well, they had to do it through my esophagus with a ultrasound to try to be able to see the pancreas through everything else and get to it.
Oh.
And there are other procedures that they would normally do through the esophagus, but they can't because of everything that's in the way. So it's just kind of complicated some different things. Like,
I don't know if we've asked you this before, but is the pancreatic cancer, is there a potential link to CDH1?
Well, Jeremy Davis says that there's no reason that a lot of things aren't related to CDH1 that we don't know about yet. One example that he gave was brain cancer, which I've heard things about that. One of the things was pancreatic cancer. So, in fact, I talked to Jeremy and I said, I just went yesterday for a blood draw so that he has more of my DNA. And because I couldn't get a tumor sample, it was only a very small needle biopsy that they could get because they couldn't access my pancreas the way that they normally would. I'm trying to figure out how to leave for research just my pancreas and the pancreatic tumor for his data bank, so that they have these important pieces from somebody who had CDH1, had gastric cancer in the family, and had pancreatic cancer. So I'm still trying to find ways to help support research through other ways, through DNA and DNA banking. And so, yeah, I mean, anything is possible right now. And I found it interesting that 3 people in my family have had pancreas issues.
Oh, wow.
Mine is cancer. 2 others are pancreatitis.
Okay.
Both people who had total gastrectomies. So is a total gastrectomy, does that have an adverse effect, long-term effect on your pancreas?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, and that's the dumping syndrome with the extra release of insulin, and who knows what it's doing to your pancreas.
Right. So I think that having a total gastrectomy has been a good option for people, but it's certainly not the best option. And we don't know yet long-term effects of a total gastrectomy. And I don't know that there are any studies going on to study long-term effects following gastrectomy. So not a lot of people are.
Absolutely.
Gastrectomy. There's not a lot of like a big database on that.
Right.
I remember that was one of my first questions for Davis when we had our initial meeting was, what's the life expectancy of someone who's had a gastrectomy? He said, we don't know, but what we have to believe is that they'll live long, healthy lives, but we don't have the long-term data yet.
Right.
So That's very interesting.
And like we were always worried because we have a high prevalence of colon cancer in our family, which some people wonder if that's tied to CDH1, but it hasn't yet been established as something.
Or maybe even there's even more genes out there that we haven't discovered.
Right.
You know, I mean, there's just so many, it's just endless. It really is.
Well, that's why I wanted to leave my blood. That's why I want to leave my tumor. That's why I want to leave whatever I can that may solve some puzzle in the future.
We are so sorry to hear about your diagnosis, Karen. That's devastating. And our thoughts and prayers are with you always. And I just don't have the words even to express how sorrowful we are.
I appreciate that. And I feel the same way. It just like, it still seems not real. I mean, I know that it is, and some days it's just ups and downs, but it's like, I know it's real, but it just doesn't seem possible. I don't know how to explain it. It's just a weird thing, but we try to do the best we can and make the best of the time that we have left. Nobody has any guarantees, in terms of time. So I guess that's another reason why we should all, not sweat the small stuff and be kind to everybody and tell people how we feel about them and how we care about them while we can, and just live in the present and take good care of ourselves. I guess that's one thing, our mind, our spirit, our body, it's our most valuable asset that we have, right? So taking care of yourself doesn't necessarily mean that bad health things aren't going to happen to you, because I mean, I'm experiencing that myself, but it certainly helps you get through things in a better way if you're healthier and stronger physically and emotionally and spiritually to be able to get through the challenges or, deal with the challenges, I guess I would say. But yeah, you just never know what tomorrow will bring. So live for today, enjoy the day, plan for the future, but don't forget the present. Right?
Wonderful advice. I love that.
Yeah.
But you're certainly leaving behind a very amazing legacy. And again, we appreciate everything you've done for this community.
Thank you. I appreciate everyone in this community that I've had the ability to work with and talk with and get to know and become friends with and love and care for and help and work, do what we do together. It's just been amazing. It has been amazing.
Yeah. And we are just like so incredibly honored that we were able to join this SOS team. So we are promising you that we're going to make that $1.5 million goal.
I know you will. I know this community, and I know that when something needs to get done, it's going to get done. So there's a lot of people that have a lot invested in this. And I appreciate the two of you and all of the angels on the team and everybody in the community and all the friends and family and fundraisers and just support for not just myself, but for our efforts and for everything. It's just been, It's amazing. My life, I've had a great life. And I'm so happy that I don't have a bucket list, because that means I did the things that I wanted to do. And I'm really happy about that. Okay, well, maybe a bucket list, maybe that 5 million.
There's always more, right?
Yeah.
Well, you sure have taken this horrible diagnosis and made lemonade out of lemons with it.
Yeah. And we're so excited to come see you in Wisconsin and meet Perry face to face. It's going to be really great. And we're really excited to be there.
I'm excited too. I can't wait to see everybody that will be there. It's a perfect opportunity to have so many people together in the same room. I just can't wait. It'll be wonderful.
It's going to be
It'll be amazing. A nice reunion.
Yeah.
Our meeting.
Yep.
Well,
Well,
Karen, appreciate you so much for taking the time to sit down and talk to us about your life story with the CDH1 mutation. Thank you so much.
You feel better today.
I will. And you keep doing the good work you've been doing. I love your interviews. They're so helpful and so informative. And I think it's great to hear so many different stories and to see the people. I love that, the videos. So thank you.
I love it too. All right. Thank you, Karen. Bye, Karen.
Bye. Take good care. Bye-bye.
You too.